Throughout the course of history, every corporation has had one goal in common. That goal is globalization. Companies have sought out diversified amount of markets with different appeals to establish their presence within, hoping to make profits beyond measure. In the past decade, the increasing competition between corporations in various industries and various economies has led to the emergence of the global market. This form of economy has no defined source, no country of operations, and consists of an immense amount of companies from different nations. This global market is characterized by its interconnectivity, where barriers have fallen and companies are unhampered by national boundaries. For instance, an automotive company in Germany can purchase parts in Japan, have the car assembled in China, get it transported aboard a cargo ship owned by an English corporation, and have it distributed to dealerships within the United States. This connectivity amongst nations who once fought against each other proves that economically, restrictions have been lifted to bring forth an era of progress and opportunity. Hello everyone, my name is Shyam. I'm a junior here at FHS who is pursuing his interest in global finance and economics during my first year in ISM. A little bit about me is that I am a very competitive tennis player in the United States Tennis Association, and I'm ranked among the top 50 players in the state of Texas. Another unique characteristic about me is that I'm adventurous. I enjoy snowboarding, kayaking, whitewater rafting, as well as many other sports such as mountain biking, cliff jumping, and other various outdoor activities. Another thing that my family and I like to do is that we love to travel. We have traveled to every continent in the world except Antarctica. I am part of different organizations in schools such as BPA, NHS, and THS, as well as I am part of the Young Entrepreneurs Academy alumni, where I instruct kids on how to start their own company. During my time in ISM, I hope to discover how an economist conducts his analysis of economic trends on a global scale and how he incorporates it with financial planning and multinational corporations. At the same time, I wish to pursue a path to develop my social and networking abilities. Through self-motivation, hard work, organization, and perseverance, I resolve to achieve a vivid understanding of the financial world as well as exploit my potential in the field of study, because finance and economics are the backbone behind the success of every company. I would like to advance my talents through ISM and be that backbone that combines innovation and flair to bring success in tomorrow's world. A little bit about global finance and economics is that the financial aspect refers to the managing of funds and continually generating ideas to acquire more funds to sustain an environment. The economic aspect that I wish to study is the product distribution, consumption of goods and services within a market. Now, when you combine both these aspects and a company decides to work in international markets, both the financial and economic aspects are part of a larger environment and are affected by factors that are both national and global in nature. For my first research assessment, I studied more on how to get ahead of my financial career. This article spoke more about following my passion and taking jobs such as internships, being an analyst, or even a sales manager, and then hoping to get the title of economist and afterwards manager, and then director, and hopefully someday executive. This article also spoke about the differences between an MBA and a bachelor in a career. It was very odd to me because it said that a master's in business administration doesn't necessarily mean a higher level job. It's more of what you do in college rather than where you go that matters more towards your career. This article also spoke about exams such as the CPA and CFA, as well as different jobs that you might want to take, such as accounting, economist, financial analyst, as well as maybe an entrepreneur. The second article I analyzed was over how to understand your business through financial analysis. Now, I took this because in middle school, when I was part of the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, my company failed due to financial issues. So by studying this article, I was able to learn more about researching and using benchmarking and trend analysis to rather understand your business. Understanding the business is really important to me because someday if I do decide to become an entrepreneur, maybe this financial analysis will help me. The next article I analyzed was the top 7 non-financial skills needed in finance, and this included the most important was analytical skills, your communication skills, and your teamwork abilities. These 3 factors are really important because if I analyze my surroundings every day, I can increase my analysis of a company, of financial statements, of economic trends, and that'll help me further my development. The next article I analyzed was over microeconomics, and it spoke to me more about basic economic terms such as explicit and implicit costs, profit margin, and revenue. It also taught me how to calculate profit margin and revenue deficiencies. Finally, this article spoke about analyzing the stock market using these terms. The final article I analyzed was business strength on financial and economic terms. Now, this was similar to the other article I analyzed, but it talked to me more about profit has to be high and on average needs to be 300% more than the cost. And it also spoke about the economy's impact on finance, such as anything that happens in the economy will affect your financial profit and loss. The highlights that I found from this article was to have a versatile background. I need to be able to understand marketing as well as have a strong understanding in finance and economics. It also showed me that job experience is very important. You need to have, before I get into MBA or before I further my development, I need to have some form or fashion of job experience. And finally, this is something that really inspired me was, if I go specific, I make Employee of the Month. If I be broad in all fields of business, yet fluent, I will make history. For my first interview assessment, I met with Michael Russell, who is the CFO of Continental Wireless Inc., which is a telecommunications company. He taught me the importance of networking, having experience in multiple fields, and taught me how that accounting is the most important part of finance. He says that this class may be the most boring class you will ever take, but it is necessary in the global world because accounting and economics, even though they differ on some terms, come together in perfect harmony. My second interview was with Alan Zephyr, and this was a very interesting interview as it was only 6 minutes. He's the CFO of Financial Gravity Holdings, Inc., but what I learned from him was that it really doesn't matter where you go in college. He spent time in night school where he learned everything he could about finance, and now he's at an executive level. He told me to not make the same mistake twice in finance, and because if you make that same mistake twice, you will lose your job and probably will never get one again in a competitive field. My third interview was with David Goldstein, and he was very interesting because he got his Wharton MBA at age 22. He completed a rigorous course at one of the best business schools in the United States, maybe even in the world, and was able to get it by the age of 22. He told me to have a lot of connections. He told me that connections will help you not only give you jobs in the future, but maybe even be good for recommendations for becoming a board of directors member of another company, such as him. He works at Kings Ranch Properties, but he's a board of directors at Beal Bank because of his connection to Andy Beal, the CEO of Beal Bank. He taught me that to take internships when I can, where I can, and to go above and beyond just within the vicinity of the United States. He told me, go to UK, go to Australia, find internships around the world, especially if you're studying global finance and economics, because it's, of course, on a global scale. My fourth interview was with Ryan Snell, and he spoke more about the differences between economics and finance, as well as the differences between franchise and equity, which I'm still learning today. His role as a mentor is very important, as even though he cannot meet every week, we still find ways to make the most of our experiences together. My fourth interview was with Michael Mines. He's the CFO of ISG, which is known as Impartial Services Group, which is an auto finance company. He taught me how the auto industry is falling. It's not a good career to go into, especially if you're going to study finance, stay corporate, but do not go into auto. He also taught me how corporate finance is one of the most cutthroat industries. And what he meant by that was this industry does not allow for any margin of error, and you must be on point and precise on everything you do. He also taught me on how I should approach college, such as taking interviews, going to the best colleges, which contradicts what everyone else said, but it's what I believe as well. My next interview was with James Robertson, or as he goes by, Jim Robertson, and he's the Senior Director of Finance at Omnitrax, which creates technology creates the finance for technology in trucks. And when I went into his office, it was very interesting because he had multiple TV screens with truck routes, as well as like the cost of fuel like constantly changing as it went. So it was very interesting to me. He taught me that persistence is key, and because of him, I was able to get my mentor in Ryan Snell, who rejected me twice. My final interview, which was a phone interview, was with Sharon McCullum, and she's the CFO of Best Buy as well as the lead board of directors member. Her role as a consultant and co-mentor is very important because I came up with my original work idea, every idea, with collaboration from her and my mentor. She told me that to pick my own path in college, do not let anybody else decide for me, and also taught me that branding is one of the most important things in the business world. You have to have the best first impression. You must have the only first impression that your interviewer remembers. She taught me also about leadership and how that a leader is somebody who runs into the fire when everybody else is running away. And she also told me that a leader does not mean people are behind you. It means that people are beside you and willing to be with you throughout the entire process. The highlights that I had from my interviews were that questioned me to ask myself, what values do I even hold? And it also taught me that to find a niche with a diverse background. So if I do study finance, I should have a background in economics as well as marketing. She also told me, or I also learned, that to not have a strong emphasis on an emphasis on a strong foundation. By doing this, I will lose sight of having a diverse background, which is necessary in the business world. For my UNT college trip, I took 4 classes, and that was finance, where it was a test review going over compound interest, microeconomics, where I learned economic terms as well as the profit, revenue, and how to calculate those. In global marketing, we talked about restrictions and limitations across the world. So, for example, Saudi Arabia, because of their women's being restricted to not showing their hair products, advertising is very challenging. And the 4th class I took was accounting, which was a very interesting class because they were talking about depreciation. And I fell asleep in this class because it was boring. And I had a kid behind me throw paper at me to wake me up while the teacher was staring at me. So it was a very interesting experience. So for my first original work, I decided to study what financial motives drive a company to expand into abnormal economies. And so I was researching the Singapore sunk cost fallacy, which is this tactic that the government uses where they mark up the prices of cars while decreasing the price of fuel. So a Toyota Camry here, which costs maybe $21,000, will cost between $41,000 and $54,000 in Singapore. Now, the reason why this government encourages this fallacy is because this tactic helps encourage public transportation and reduce traffic congestion. And what I think that the motives are for the government is that they want to limit foreign influences within the economy. And I chose to study the automotive industry because how does an automotive company make a profit when people are rarely buying cars? Now, the reason why this topic failed was because public data was not available on specifically one market. And I chose to study BMW, and the annual reports showed no data whatsoever of Singapore. The economy there also limits. The economy also limits the price of gas stations being allowed in there, and there was also issues with confidentiality. So I called BMW and asked them, do they have any data on Singapore? And they said that would be exposing any confidential information. And they also told me that we do not have an exact production or manufacturing company there. It is more of a research facility. So that's where they developed the idea of the I-8 and I-3. My second original work was what drives the multinational corporations to employ franchises rather than direct equity. And because my mentor was so experienced in franchise and equity, being a director of global finance, he told me to analyze the food industry. I had access to data from my mentor, and I had a diverse amount of companies to study within various economies. Now again, this original work failed as it was not original, it was very simple and easy, and there was not enough economics incorporated into my original work. which led me to my third original work. So I chose to study what course is China going to take over the course of the next few years, and how will that correspond to the auto industry. So rather than studying an industry in an economy, I chose to study the economy within an industry. And so I chose to take this in a three-step process: a synopsis of the prior economy between 2011 and 2015, and then the current state from June 2015, and my predictions, which includes 3 different predictions. So for the synopsis of the economy, I chose to study how China had a strong double-digit GDP per capita from 2011 to 2014, how unemployment was at a consistent rate of about 4.1%, and the increasing exports and imports from maybe 11,000 to over 21,000 from between those respective years. Now, the auto industry, in correlation to the economy, was very interesting as profits skyrocketed. There was an availability of over 7% more jobs, and the profit cost margin was over 400%. Now, the current state at which China's economy is at is that they had a summer stock market crash which resembled their 1992 crash. Beijing alone put a 16 trillion yuan cap on debt for the Chinese government. And since China has already lost value in the yuan compared to the dollar, inflation has decreased, unemployment rates are increasing, exports and imports are decreasing, and President Jinping has consolidated all federal funds into reserves. The strategy that he took is very interesting because it's very risky. By consolidating all the funds, he's preventing local governments from rolling over their debts. But in doing so, he is increasing the national debt and also losing the amount of investment he has in the economy. So all in all, China's days of a glorified economy is a fossil of history, one that may never be achieved in the coming decades. The auto industry, in correlation to this, was that the Chinese government was trying to employ the sunk cost fallacy in Singapore. They were encouraging public transportation with the introduction of the maglev, which is the fastest metro commuter train in the world. And also, another thing that happened to the auto industry was that there were cuts and backlashes. The unemployment rates skyrocketed, and the manufacturing industry alone decreased their production rate by 24%. So with this knowledge that I acquired, I decided to make the forecasts. The scenario 1 was that wage cuts, their unemployment rates, GDP shall increase to approximately 1.2%, which is different from their 7% and prior 14%. I said that debt will increase approximately 7% because from the 1993 and 2009, their debt increased 4% and 6%. So I'm saying 7% this time because China's population has increased. There's more production being involved, so therefore there has to be more debt. And I said even after the economy recovers, the GDP should still be low at a 4.2% max. Now, even though this is high for an emerging market, for China, which is the second largest economy in the world, this is a very low rate. I said that the auto industry shall hit new lows: production, consumption, sales, and supply and demand. A chain reaction will occur as local automotive companies shall shut down or amass a large amount of debts, and the foreign auto industries shall also amass debt. The second scenario that I had was that there will most likely be a limited cuts. GDP shall fall to 5% and maintain at that level no matter what happens. Unemployment rate shall increase from that 4.1% to a minimum of 4.7%. So you're looking at maybe 7 million people. And the government is going to take conservative tactics and shall limit export and imports. Now, the plus side to this strategy is that government can be able to use that risky strategy again and not let debt roll over. They can place larger caps on urban centers and have local governments control their own economies. The third scenario is that, which is the best case scenario for China, is that unemployment rates shall barely change. So this will look more like the 2009 near stock market crash. Manufacturing will decrease, and so will exports, but maybe only to a minimum. So basically, this is a false alarm and the economy will bounce back. In addition to this original work, I added another, I would say, addition, maybe extra credit almost, was that what was going to happen to the periphery. Now, USA and UK are the two most highly involved economies that are associated with China. The US invests over $10 billion in China, and likewise, China invests $6.4 billion in the United States. This failed economic crisis could result in an awakening to the US, where they reduce their investment in China and look to other emerging markets to be prospective. And some of these economies include Africa, Russia, as well as Ukraine. Now, UK's involvement is going to obviously reduce, and they're going to limit their imports from China. So they will limit all production of cars and look maybe towards Germany or other areas where they can import transportation. My mentorship experiences are wonderful as I work with Mr. Ryan Snell's team, Josh and Don. Both of them are senior financial analysts and help me in my development and understanding of global corporate finance. Now, under Ryan, I learned to understand economic as well as financial terms, as well as he gives me input for my original work, for my final product, or any assessment that comes along in ISM. For my final product, I wish to create a business, and right now I am looking at smarter energy solutions, and this business is situated in the United States. It would like to expand on a global scale. I would like to give financial statements as well as business plan for the past year. Now, being that I'm unexperienced in financial statements, my mentor said that he will help me create the profit losses as well as the regression analysis of the economy. Now, the second part to that final product is that I was going to analyze 3 to 5 markets and give a scenario of what might happen in each economy. In addition to that, I would like to create an expansion analysis and proposal, so where I will analyze what is going to happen to these economies, give a forecast of what will happen, and then select the best economy in which I should expand my company into. Some of the goals I have in ISM include earning a place in the International Tennis Federation tournaments in London, India, and Australia. I would like to create an extensive network of professionals as well as attend business school, whether it be the honors program at UT, Wharton School of Business, or even the London School of Economics. Although after college uncertainty prevails, I will be following my passion. Because failure has always been a part of my life, I know that the journey to success will not be easy. That's why I keep Samuel Beckett's words in mind. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, but fail better. Failure shall always come and go in every person's life. It is how we choose to handle that failure, for better or for worse, that shall change the course of our lives. By being in ISM, I believe that all of us have found a way to pursue our passion, live our dreams, and change the world. Thank you.